The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and sending icy fingers through the gaps in the old house. Jenny, a bright-eyed 10-year-old, sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by a fort made of couch cushions and blankets. An odd thrill coursed through her veins. It was her first night alone at home without her parents. They were just down the street at a neighbor's dinner party, planning to return long after her bedtime. It had all been a jubilant affair, a rite of passage celebrated with a warning. Don't open the door for anyone, okay? With a flashlight in hand and a bowl of popcorn resting beside her, she watched her favorite horror movie, the glow from the television flickering shadows against the walls. Laughter and screams blasted from the stereo, merging seamlessly with the storm outside. However, contentment morphed swiftly into unease when she glimpsed something out of the corner of her eye. The curtains fluttered, though there was no breeze. Shaking her head and convincing herself it was merely the aftermath of the film, she redirected her focus to the screen. But the sensation remained. Something was watching her. Thump! The sound resonated from somewhere upstairs, followed by a scuttling noise that sent her heart rattling in her chest. Jenny had left the light on in her parents' bedroom, and a slender beam of illumination broke through the darkness upstairs. Every logic-driven neuron in her brain told her it was just the old house settling, just the wind. And yet, her legs felt rooted to the floor, a knot swelling in her throat. "Mom? Dad?" she called, though her voice wavered, barely maintaining its bravado. Silence answered, echoing emptiness through the corners of the house. The thumping sensation returned, heavier now, almost rhythmic, like someone pacing. Jenny detangled herself from the fortress of cushions and stood, dread creeping through her. She took a slow step towards the staircase. Each creak of the old wood felt louder than thunder as she climbed higher, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity. At the top of the stairs, she hesitated, the hallway stretching in a shroud of darkness. The light from her parents' room beckoned her. Mustering every ounce of courage, Jenny made her way down the hall. The door stood slightly ajar. Pushing it open, Jenny flicked on the light. The room was as she had left it, neat, with an oversized bed draped in crisp linens. The closet was mostly closed, but something stirred within, a soft rustle as if something had just awakened. Her heart raced, and she stepped back, quaking at the sight. "Mom," she whimpered again, her voice trembling. Suddenly, the closet door creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure curled up on the floor. Its eyes blinked open, dark, hollow, unblinking. It wasn't human. Jenny felt a cold wash over her, the thrill and terror of being home alone entangling into something far more sinister. The creature hunched closer, its long fingers brushing against the wooden floor, jagged nails glinting in the light. It flashed a grin, but it didn't belong on that mangled face. Jenny gasped, panic flooding through her as she pivoted and raced down the hall once more. As she braced for the stairs, the muffled rhythm returned, a beat that echoed against the very fabric of her being. It was now harmonizing with her racing heartbeat, a gruesome lullaby coaxing her back into the darkness. Jenny stumbled, nearly tumbling down the stairs, but she steadied herself. Images of her parents flooded her mind, warm arms wrapping around her, laughter, and unyielding safety. At the bottom of the staircase, she sprinted into the living room, her fort now a haven. A whimper escaped her lips as she plopped down, hastily piling cushions around her. But now, from the dark corners of the room, whispers crept in, taunting and mocking her. A chill settled in, and the shadows warped and stretched across the walls. Then, the front door rattled. "Jenny!" cried her mother's voice, familiar yet distorted through panic and fear. Jenny opened the door. Her heart lurched. There was no way her parents were back yet. The creature had surely found a way to mimic their voices, and her body flooded with dread. Should she trust the call? The door rattled more violently. "Open the door, please, we need you." Jenny clamped her hands over her ears, tears streaming down her face. "No, you're not Mom," she choked out, clenching her jaw. The rattling ceased, and silence swept over the house once more. Jenny sat in her fortress, heart pounding against the pit of her stomach. Eventually, she could no longer deny the truth. The whispers were coming from behind her. She looked back, and there it was, the creature. It had moved closer without her even noticing, a nightmarish revelation inching its way through the shadows, a smile cracking its horrid visage, a voice suffused with malice. "Let me in, Jenny." Time froze as she stared into the abyss of its eyes, the haunting disaster lurking within. The grotesque truth was that if she opened the door, chaos would unfurl. In an instinctive wave of rebellion, she bolted back to the door and slammed the latch shut, her breath heavy, each inhalation a battle against the darkness. The creature screeched, coughing into a terrible cadence that reverberated throughout the house. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the storm outside reached a crescendo. Jenny pressed her back against the door frantically, heart hammering in her chest. "Go away!" The beast laughed, a sound that echoed in her ears like shards of glass. And with every second that passed, Jenny felt the wall between her reality and the horror beyond eroding. The front door burst open, and just then, Then, a figure rushed inside, a silhouette formed of pure light. It shielded Jenny, powerful and restoring like a waking dream. Her parents materialized from the shadows and rushed to her. "Thank God, you're safe," her father exclaimed. The creature hissed, dissipating back into the darkness as if it had never been, leaving Jenny breathless and trembling in the protective embrace of her family. The eerie remnants of the night faded slowly, but Jenny was forever changed. The home she knew now held shadows, whispers, and dark corners, reminding her that sometimes evil lurks where you least expect it, right in your own home. Even as Dawn breathed warmth into the world, she felt the cold hand of fear wrap around her heart. Home, sweet home, could prove to be anything but safe. Once upon a time in a small, isolated town, there stood a house that had been abandoned for years. Locals whispered that the house was haunted, and no one dared to go near it after dark. The house had once belonged to the Anderson family, who mysteriously disappeared one stormy night, leaving behind all their belongings and no trace of where they had gone. Rumors swirled about what had happened to the Andersons, but one thing was for certain: the house was cursed. It stood alone at the edge of town, its windows boarded up, and its doors creaking ominously in the wind. No one knew what secrets lay hidden within its walls, but everyone could sense the malevolent presence that lingered there. One fateful night, a young couple named Emily and James decided to test their bravery and explore the abandoned house. They had heard the stories and seen the warnings, but curiosity got the better of them as they made their way through the overgrown garden and up the crumbling steps to the front door. The air inside the house was musty and thick with dust, and the couple shivered as they made their way through the empty rooms. They could hear strange noises coming from the walls and floorboards, and a sense of unease settled over them like a heavy fog. As they ventured deeper into the house, they came across a room that seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, and the furniture was draped in cobwebs. Emily felt a chill run down her spine as she noticed a dusty old mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. James reached out to touch the mirror, but before his hand could make contact, a ghostly figure materialized before them. It was a young girl with pale skin and sunken eyes, her tattered dress fluttering in a non-existent breeze. She beckoned to them with bony fingers, her voice a whisper in the darkness. "Leave this place," she moaned, her voice chilling them to the core. "The house is cursed, and those who enter never leave." Terrified, Emily and James turned to flee, but the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening crash. They were trapped in the house of horrors, at the mercy of whatever evil force held sway over them. As they searched for a way out, they encountered more spirits trapped within the walls of the house. Each one told a tale of woe and sorrow, of lives lost and souls damned to wander the halls for all eternity. The house itself seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, feeding off the fear and despair of those who dared to enter. As the night wore on, Emily and James realized that they were not alone in the house. Shadows moved in the corners of their vision, whispers echoed through the hallways, and doors slammed shut behind them with an unseen force. The spirits of the Anderson family seemed to be watching them, their eyes filled with sadness and longing. Finally, as dawn broke over the horizon, Emily and James found themselves back at the front door of the house. The curse had been lifted, and they were free to leave. But as they stepped out into the daylight, they knew that they would never forget the horrors they had witnessed within those walls. The abandoned house stood silent and empty once more, its secrets hidden from prying eyes. But for Emily and James, the memory of that night would haunt them for the rest of their days, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks in even the most innocent of places.